I continue to speak in depth with all of the candidates running for Congress in the newly drawn Coachella Valley districts. Republican Jonathan Reiss is a Valley business owner hoping to unseat Democratic incumbent Raul Ruiz in the Eastern District. I spoke today with Reiss about why he's running and the issues that matter most to him. Jonathan, first off, tell us why you're running as a Republican in the newly created Eastern Coachella Valley district.
Well, I'm running because the district needs representation. And I looked at the field, and there's no question in my mind that I could do the best job in terms of representing the people in this district.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and what makes you, in your opinion, qualified to represent that part of the Valley in Congress.
Well, I've lived here for 25 years. I grew up back east, but I've been out in California since the late 80s. And I studied government and international relations in college. I have a degree. I did some work in Washington. I did some work in Geneva at the UN for the High Commission on Refugees. And I started my own businesses. I've run a number of successful businesses. I'm in the media business now. And over the years, I've seen the, disillusion of coherency in America. The unification isn't there. People are fighting over things they shouldn't be fighting about, Republicans, Democrats. And I don't see the representation in that district solving that problem. I see it worsening the problem. So I felt compelled to step in and see if I can make a difference. I know I could make a big difference.
As you know, Democratic incumbent Raul Ruiz is also planning to run in that district. Your thoughts on him?
I don't have a lot of thoughts on him. The biggest thought I have is, and there's also another Republican running, that they're doctors. And we have a phenomenon in this country where people get very emotional about political issues instead of using their heads, and they abandon their careers and they abandon all kinds of thinking in terms of behavior, and they, any means to an end. And it's not any means to an end. Not in this country. It's never been that way. I think that those people who have other professions might be better off sticking with that other profession. What I've seen in terms of representation, it's not helping us. We have governmental issues here in this country that transcend just the little problems. There's inflation, there's immigration issues, but we have structural problems with a constitution that was written over 200 years ago. And we need people who have studied government and who understand those issues to correct those problems, systemic problems. And people talk about systemic problems all the time, but they don't really understand what those problems are. And that is something I can explain, and that is something I can work on. And that is something that will fix the underlying issues that are creating these problems.
What are the top 3 issues specific to the Coachella Valley? And if elected, how would you address those issues?
Well, I see, obviously, world events affect us. Right now, we have Ukrainian refugees knocking on the border. And if you noticed with this district, it's completely different. It's now an area that encompasses most of the Mexican border, which it never did before, in California, most of the California-Mexican border, all of Arizona, all the way up to Nevada. And it creates a corridor that could be used for dangerous purposes. And it never existed that way before. So the immigration tradition of America is a wonderful tradition. We welcome people from all over the world. We hold the Statue of Liberty light of freedom and to everybody in the world, and we will continue doing that. But it has to be done in an intelligent way that serves the purposes of these refugees who are in a desperate state and the American people. And that doesn't seem to be taking place. And so obviously Democrats and Republicans should both want that issue resolved. We have the Salton Sea, which is such an amazing place that has been a struggle for people for years and years and years, and it has to have federal assistance to get that resolved. And there's no question in my mind, I know how to go about getting that resolved. So those are 2 of the biggest issues. There's a whole host of other issues, but one of the first things I would do, Peter, is I would study that, because it takes a lot of study. My understanding is there's been no legislation offered from our representation in a decade, or if there has been, it's very little and it's only been health related. We need to get in there and understand what are the issues and get some legislation passed that's going to help the people in this district, and of course, the people in the state and the people in the nation.
All right, Jonathan, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Peter.